morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is Friday, April 1st. Today's officially April Fool's Day.
Right, and you just wait for my April Fools.
I didn't even realize that till I said the date. I was like, it is April 1st. Are you guys fooling me? Is the deep state fooling all of us? That should be the theme of today's show. Uncovering the deep state's plan to fool the population, fool society into cooperating into the green zones and the coinciding bioweapons market. But we have a little bit of a change here on today's schedule. Our beloved John O'Loughlin is running just a tad bit late, so John Wilkins and I are taking over the morning slot, waiting for him to fill in. We do have a great schedule ahead of us here on neighborhoodnewsstudio.com. We have John O'Loughlin coming about 1 hour at 11:15. We got George Webb following at 12 p.m. He's live in studio. The content's always a little bit better when the participants are in studio, just because they can direct things a little bit more. It's a little more flow to it. And we have another episode of Protect the Nest coming on at 4 p.m. or 2 p.m. tonight with Amber Connor, Tara Starr, and Carol McIntosh, our West Coast Mongolian journo. But while we wait for
John just appeared. Oh no,
while we wait for John to come into the show, we got a little video here of George P. Schultz. Why don't you set it up while I get the video ready, John?
All right, continuing on John O'Loughlin's series on synarchists and how the synarchists were instrumental in setting up what is currently being called the rules-based order. I thought that this would be a good intro, at least 5 or 10 minutes to hear George P. Schultz himself talk about how he sees the world and what we can expect in the years coming. This video is back in, I think, 2013, but it sets the stage for what John's going to talk about a little bit later.
My old friend and my former boss, George Schultz, here in Washington. I'm told this is the 7th time he has spoken at the council. And I would simply tell you something that I think everyone in this room knows, that he is one of this country's most distinguished public servants. He served in 3 administrations, if our research is right, the Eisenhower, Nixon, and Reagan administrations, and was involved intimately in everything from international economic policy to the modern history of the Middle East and Asia, and obviously critical moments in the Cold War. And in between these stints in public life, the secretary sat back and ate bonbons, and he did easy things like running the University of Chicago's Graduate School of Business, leading Bechtel, or being a pillar of the intellectual community that is Stanford. And let me just try to sum him up, someone I've known now for several decades, this way. From all I know about George Schultz, I'm not sure if I hope not to embarrass you or embarrass you here. He's a gentleman of principle, of integrity, of conviction, of curiosity, and of loyalty. And I've been around enough to know that such packages are as rare as they are valuable. Just want to also add one housekeeping note before we get started, that tonight CFR members from around the country and
went through a few tough times together, worked them through. So there's a little bit of a reunion quality, at least with many of you. So I'm very glad to see you all.
If all of those of you who are nostalgic for the good old days of interagency meetings, here's your chance. I'm sure you miss them as much as I do. Let's start, if you will, where we are now. And here we are, we're, 12, 13% into the new century. But most of your career was really done against the backdrop of the 4 decades of the Cold War. What's your sense of the character that's beginning to emerge? It's now been really 25 years essentially since the end of the Cold War, since the end of the other era, and you were there at the end of it. What's your sense? What have you concluded about this new epoch, this new era of history we find ourselves in?
Well, let me set the strategic challenge that we face as I see it. First of all, let's do a little recollecting. Toward the end of World War II, some gifted people got together, mostly US, a few others, Britain, and they looked back. And what did they see? They saw two world wars. The first one settled in rather vindictive terms that helped lead to the second one. 70 million people killed in the Second World War. Who knows how many injured, how many homeless. The devastation in many places was appalling. They saw the Great Depression. They saw the protectionism and the currency manipulation that aggravated it and made it work, and also kind of enhanced the nationalistic feelings that were rising. They saw the Holocaust, and they said to themselves, what a crummy world. And we're part of it, whether we like it or not. Whether we like it or not, we're part of it. That's a crummy world. So they set out to do something better. And then along comes the realization that the Soviet Union was a hostile, aggressive force. So they developed ideas and institutions. They created the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, now the World Bank, but initially it was for reconstruction, the IMF. They created the idea of containment and NATO. And these ideas and the work on them was sustained by a group of democracies, a growing numbers of democracies over a long period. In effect, they created what we might call a global economic and security commons. And everybody benefited from it, especially us, but everybody. I can remember in the early 80s, I was in Beijing and had the privilege of talking to Deng Xiaoping. And he said, well, we've come a long ways in China and we're ready for 2 openings. Remember his 2 openings. One opening was inside China so people could move around. And the other was an opening to the outside world. And he said, I'm glad there's a reasonably coherent outside world to open to. So all of that happened. Now, where are we? We are in a world awash in change. And we have to be very careful that it doesn't just become chaotic. The global economic and security commons is coming apart at the seams. And we have to ask ourselves why, what's going on analytically, and then see what we do to try to get more stability in it. Let me tick off the things I think are causing this world awash and change. Number one is demography. The face of the world is radically different than it was 50 years ago, and it's continuing to change. In Japan and Germany, you have low fertility, rising longevity, an older and older population, a declining population, still very capable people, but a very different picture. They could no more stand off the world as they did in World War II.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, there you have George P. Schultz on he was just setting up on pretty much why they set up the rules-based international order in the first place. But we do have our featured journalist. He's officially here and live in the studio. So I'm going to bring him on the screen because that's who you guys have been waiting for. Mr. O'Loughlin, how you doing this morning?
Well, I'm just fine, Andy. How are you?
I'm
Hello,
doing.
John.
Morning, John.
Yeah, I don't know if you just saw, we were just played a little video of George P. Schultz. You did a show yesterday on the rules-based order, so I figured we just kind of relay off that at the beginning of your show this morning while we were waiting on you. But you can go ahead and take it away, sir.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much. And yeah, I just got a glimpse of the ghost of George P. Schultz on my screen as I settled in here. Apologize for being late. Had a little doctor appointment to take care of, and you never know when you're going to get out of there. So anyway, glad to be with everybody, and happy Friday to everyone. It's Cash Friday. I remind you to use cash today. Don't use your card, so that we can start sending a message that we don't want them to take away our cash. I think one of the ways that they'll be able to, the best, easiest way for them to take away our freedom is to take away our cash, because then every single transaction becomes on their big computer, and they can hold you accountable for it, and they can keep a record of you, and decide whether they want you to be part of their world, or just to let you fade away and fall off the radar screen. And happy April Fool's Day, Garden Girl. Happy April 1st to everyone. The used to be the first day of the year a long time ago, and then the church changed it, said, no, we're going to start on January 1st. And from that point on, anybody that thought the year started on April 1st was a fool. And so that's why we have a tradition of April Fool's Day, because ha ha ha, you thought spring started when nature thought it started. What a fool you are. You have to go by what the church says. So January, first day, first of the year is January now, officially. Comes from God. God speaks through the Pope. Pope speaks to you through your priest, and you do what you are told. That's a rules-based order, the Catholic Church rules-based order. But what George Schultz is talking about is a rules-based order, and I think it's really was a great selection, Andy and John Wilkins in the studio, to put that little clip on there, because it does remind us that while my dad was the guy that wanted to preserve and protect and defend our Constitution, George P. Schultz is the guy that wants to turn our Constitution into mud and make it whatever the elites want it to say. And that does, it is a consistent theme that you can go from that George Schultz's ideas back in the 60s and 70s to what's going on right now. It really is a rules-based order, and it's their rules, and you don't even get to know what the rules are, because they're smarter than us, so we just do what they say, right? They're so smart people. Yeah. Yeah, my dad and George Schultz were rivals at Loomis, what's now called Loomis Chaffee Preparatory School in Windsor, Connecticut. Rivals on the football team, and rivals in the social life as well, as you can study if you look at the Loomis Eleni of 1938. So, and I've shown you those pictures in there before. My dad was on the football team and also track. There's a picture of him in there getting ready to do the shot put. To twist around and throw it like that. Well, returning to my theme from a day or two ago, I really do think this rules-based order is what we have to concentrate on, making everybody aware of it and avoiding it as much as we can. My content today is going to continue with Ian Davis. That's IAIN is his name, Davis. And his essay that is at Unlimited Hangout, called Technocracy, the Operating System, is what I was reading from, and I want to pick up where I was. and just make some reading and comments this morning on this essay at Unlimited Hangout, February of 2022. And it's called Technocracy, the Operating System for the New International Rules-Based Order by Ian Davis. And we were talking yesterday about, or the day before, I can't remember which one, the claimed justification for the new domestic terrorism unit working alongside the U.S. Justice Department's National Security Division was created to combat the growing threat of extremism, which apparently includes anti-government and anti-authority ideologies. To question either authority or government is an extremist position, according to the U.S. Justice Department and the Department of Health of Homeland Security, DHS. There is no room for freedom of speech in the government's extremist ideology. Without freedom of speech, U.S. democracy is finished. Well, that's right. Without freedom of speech, U.S. democracy is finished. The rules-based order quashes freedom of speech. So do you want democracy or do you want the rules-based order? Similarly, in New Zealand, Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern, a World Economic Forum young global leader, admitted her government's intention to ignore people's inalienable right to roam unless they submitted to vaccination. So too with the European Commission, whose EU digital COVID certificate limits freedom of movement only to citizens who have the right pharmaceutical products injected into them. These vaccine certificates are the gateway to full digital ID for all compliant citizens. Speaking in June 2021, the president of the EU Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, said, quote, "We want to offer Europeans a new digital identity, an identity that ensures trust and protects users online. It will allow everyone to control their identity online and to interact with governments and businesses across the EU," unquote. In other words, the EU citizens' vaccine status, which will form a key part of digital identity per EU plans, will also be required for them to access goods and services. Without the appropriate authorization, they will be excluded from society. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing that without, just all they have to do is keep the program going, and the COVID IDs will turn into permanent digital IDs, and then you'll have your tracking and your social credit score, and that will determine whether or not you're able to buy anything or go to any events or even leave your house if you don't have the right social credit score. And that's being tried out in China right now, has been for years. I mean, they've been doing this in China for years. Not everywhere, not the whole country, but those that they can easily control, in Beijing in particular, and the port cities, the cities where business and people are able to make money. Well, they're going to be under surveillance. They're going to be under control. I don't want to be under control. Between George P. Schultz and McDuff, which do you pick? I pick McDuff every day, because McDuff doesn't want to control you. He wants you to be happy, to be free, and to enjoy the benefits of being born in this incredible biosphere that we are lucky enough to inhabit. Don't foul the nest. Don't mess up our biosphere. But that's part of it, and I'm speaking off the cuff right now, but part of what they're doing is telling us that nature is bad, and you shouldn't go out in the woods. Don't go out by yourself. Make sure that you have somebody with you. Don't have don't risk going out there because you might get bit by a tick, for instance, which is real. I mean, I don't go in the woods. Here in this beautiful island, we have some woods. I used to walk our dogs in the woods. Then one of them got Lyme disease, and I thought, well, this is just ridiculous. We can't go in the woods anymore because our dogs and ourselves will get bitten. We'll get Lyme disease, and it's just too high a risk. I'm just sometimes wonder if they didn't invent Lyme disease just to start weaning us off of nature, so that we couldn't just go out and enjoy a day going out camping or heaven forbid, live off of nature. Down here, that's what they did. In Mystery Island, the people that lived here lived off of nature, fishing, hunting. And while you might think, well, that's a terrible thing to do to the animals, on the other hand, we didn't make this world. This world is a place where we have a great privilege to exist for a while and breathe in and out and try to enjoy our lives for this brief time that we're here. And the only way I can enjoy it is to try to keep it safe and free for the next people. I want it to be beautiful for the next generation. I want them to look back at us and say, wow, you guys cleaned up the mess after World War II, so we could live peacefully and calm and free and breathe air and walk in the woods and travel whenever we want to, go to the beach, go to the mountains, and not lock us down under what I consider to be completely false pretenses, because there never was a legitimate pandemic. And what we have now is basically a bunch of people that have flu symptoms getting diagnosed as if they have some horrible, horrible disease. But that's all just speculative. We don't know. What we don't know is, killing us. What we don't know shouldn't be killing us. We should be able to confront unknowns. That's humanity. We're supposed to have brains and, the combination of experience and study and good habits should put us in a position to make the right decisions individually, not like we have to follow Big Brother. Just check with you guys on the chat for a moment. Chinese were always impressed by American rebellion against the oligarchs. Okay, yeah, I believe that. I know that's what Ho Chi Minh's whole philosophy was. Basically, let's be like the Americans. Let's be like George Washington and the Patriots, and have human rights in our Constitution. We are indeed meant to be outdoors as humans, and exposure to the sun's rays, and that's another one that they're trying to, make. If they can make us sick, then we won't be a threat to them. We didn't clean up the mess after World War II. That's true, we didn't. But what I'm saying is we could be the generation that does that. I mean, of course, my generation, we're fading out. But people of Andy's generation, John, Mark Kulak, and then all of the young people that are getting attracted to what we're doing here at Neighborhood News Studio, and that is trying to tell the truth and peel back the layers. That's what young people like. They love to see behind the curtain. It's like, oh yeah, show me what's really going on in this world. I want to see that. We've got to have the young people keep that curiosity going, keep that sense of, wow, what's really going on? I need to know. So I'm going to continue reading because I think this essay is absolutely on point. So again, Ian Davis is the gentleman's name that wrote this article, and he's got a website called we're-in-this-together.com. Recently, some governments have appeared to backtrack on their vaccine passport plans. This is simply a brief cessation in the face of mounting public protest. Uh-oh, yeah, that's right. We think, it's over, but no, they're beating the drums in the background. They'll be back out with another scare. Another big scare is coming. You can bet on it. The commitment to digital identity controlling every aspect of our lives is inherent to the UN's Sustainable Development Goal 16.9. You guys know about the SDGs? Well, if you know about the WEF, you got to learn about the SDGs. These are the Sustainable Development Goals, and they will govern the decisions of banks whether to lend money to a prospective business or not, whether governments will allow something, a particular type of enterprise to exist at all. All of that is going to be decided not by the voters, not by the county council, not by the governor, and not by the president. It's going to be decided by the authorities of the World Economic Forum, which consists, of course, of the great experts in the world, and we can rely on the quote-unquote experts, right? They're never wrong. That's why we give all the pharmaceutical companies immunity from prosecution, because why bother since they're never wrong anyway? Make sense? None of these policies indicates an underlying belief in freedom and democracy. Among the Five Eyes nations and across the EU, all we see is a commitment to authoritarian dictatorship. In the UK, where Truss is a leading figure, and she is a spokesman for the UK government, Elizabeth Truss, plans for a dictatorship are at an advanced stage. What? In the UK, plans for a dictatorship are at an advanced stage? In the UK? Wait a minute. Don't we love the UK? Don't we love our mother country? And sweet little Queenie, you know? Gosh, the nobility of Great Britain is just such a bunch of cute people. They're so charming. And they wear the greatest outfits. And they have great music and soldiers. And I mean, who wouldn't like the United Kingdom? Well, if you want to live in a dictatorship, sure. The UK state has exploited the pseudo-pandemic to progress and enact a slew of dictatorial legislation. The Covert Human Intelligence Sources Act of 2020. What? The Covert Human Intelligence Sources Act empowers the state to commit any crime it likes and removes all legal liability from its operatives. The Police, Crimes, Sentencing, and Courts Bill effectively outlaws all public protest. And while currently stalled in the House of Lords, after the House of Lords rejected the bill, some minor amendments will almost certainly see it passed into law. The Online Safety Bill, when enacted, will end freedom of speech online, and the proposed changes to official secrets, counter-espionage, and counter-terrorism legislation will remove the journalist's defense of acting in the public interest, effectively ending whistleblowing and investigative journalism in the UK. All of these tyrannical changes are exemplified by the UK government's proposed Human Rights Act reforms. Their press release demonstrates how their claim of respecting individual rights, freedoms, and democracy is nothing more than propaganda designed to dupe an unsuspecting public. While they speak of diversity and a historical commitment to freedom, peppering their press release with fluffy sound bites, their actions belie their intent. They state, quote, the government wants to introduce a Bill of Rights in a way that protects people's fundamental rights while safeguarding the broader public interest. Oh, okay. So the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. Okay. What about the rights? The rights of the many outweigh the rights of the few? Well, that's what you're saying here. You're saying individual rights are going to fall and the public interest rights are going to be the only important question. The growth of a, quote, rights culture, unquote, has displaced due focus on personal responsibility and the public interest. Whilst human rights are universal, isn't that pretty? Human rights are universal. A Bill of Rights could require the courts to give greater consideration to the behavior of claimants and the wider public interest when interpreting and balancing qualified rights, not rights, just privileges. The shift of lawmaking power away from Parliament toward the courts in defining rights and weighing them against the broader public interest has resulted in a democratic deficit. Freedom of expression cannot be an absolute right when balanced against the need to protect national security, keep citizens safe, and take steps to protect against harm to individuals. Well, there it is. Freedom of expression cannot be an absolute right when balanced against the need to protect national security. Well, wait a minute. What is national security in an age where there's no sovereignty? You're telling me that we have to move toward a one world order, a universal health coverage with universal jabs, right? Just everything comes down from the top. You will do what you're told. And it's not policy set by the nation. It's policy set by the UN or policy set by the World Economic Forum or policy set by the Rockefeller Foundation or whatever think tank you want to put behind it, the Committee of 300, the Bilderbergers. It's them. They figured it out. They are the ones that are in charge of this. It is insulting to anyone's intelligence to read this sentence. Freedom of expression cannot be an absolute right when balanced against the need to protect national security. No. The reason we have nations is to protect individual rights. Sovereignty is granted by the people, not by God, not by the king, not by the emperor, not by historical precedents. Sovereignty in this country was created by the people in order to achieve the goals in the preamble to the Constitution. A more perfect union? Well, how many times have you heard that phrase, a more perfect union, and wondered, well, what could be more perfect than perfect? I thought that was already a superlative. But in those days, they wrote differently. They meant what they meant. They meant that the union should be gradually made tighter, more unified, a more perfect unity. And of course, that had to wait until the Civil War, and is still waiting, really, to decide between the two major economic systems, the agricultural and the manufacturing. One of the things I've wanted to draw out and I've emphasized in my own presentations is how the idea of agricultural agrarianism is it's semper eadem, the motto, the Latin motto, always the same. Semper, remember semper fidelis, always faithful. Semper eadem, always the same. EADEM. That means no, we're not going to put everybody in cities and make them work in the textile mills. we're not going to do that. We're going to continue, raising our crops and our animals and organizing our plantations in the most efficient way. And, the labor, the workers, the people that have to do the weeding, tend the crops, tend the animals, do the harvesting, all of that work. Well, those people, you can give them money, or you can just give them a nice place to live and free food and Sundays off. You know, what's better? Give them, the equivalent of slavery, but you know, make it easy and feed them well. As was we were saying the other day, in improving the lot of slavery. But once you say, well, we can, as Jefferson said, we slavery can be uh, ameliorated or made better. And then the answer is, well, okay, if you can make it better, then we don't need to eliminate it. So let's just keep on going and we'll make it better. Well, that's an agrarian attitude. There has to be laborers. We can't pay them much. So, what's the difference between somebody that lives in a hovel that they had to buy themselves out of the meager labor wages that they make, and eat lousy food and have to work 60 or 80 hours a week anyway? You might even be better off just saying, well, forget about that, just make me a slave. I'll just be comfortable and have a nice warm place to live, and maybe the food will be better because they're going to ameliorate slavery, right? The thing that people don't understand is that's not in the past. That is the mindset of the synarchy. It is the mindset of the nobility. It is the mindset of the rentier class, the class of people who think they come from a bloodline that absolves them of having to do any work. I'm a Sinclair, or I'm a Cabot, or I'm a Dulles, and I don't pull weeds. I have people to do that for me. Meanwhile, they're making sure that the rest of us are not able to have any help because we won't be able to afford it. And we'll end up being, gradually, us or our progeny will end up back in that serf world that they want. So we can't go back. We can't go back to Semper Eadem. But we can't go forward to caves of steel. What do I mean by caves of steel? Well, Caves of Steel is one of the first two science fiction novels by Isaac Asimov. I, Robot was one of them. It's not like the movie, and it's not like the movie that, if you saw it, that movie was a travesty of the work. It's worth reading. It is about a robot that thinks like a human, and his name is R. Daniel Olival, and R. Daniel Olival becomes partners with the human, the hero of the book. And I guess the idea is to see how humans and robots can work together and solve problems and anticipate danger. The second book is more of those two characters. It's called Caves of Steel, and in that you get the real picture of what these creeps, and I include Asimov as a creep. He's a very, very creepy character. They're envisioned, for the future. And what do they say? They say that people are going to live in these great big cities that are all enclosed. Sound familiar? And they call it Caves of Steel. And you can't go outside the city. You can go to the boundary and you can look out there and you can see the service robots out there spraying the fields or whatever they're doing. But they have worked this into the future of America, where you're not going to be able to go in the woods. You're not going to be able to go to the national forest and camp out anymore. You're not going to be able to even think about spending a week in nature. It's going to be off limits. You're going to have special extra privileges on your social credit score if you want to go to the woods, if you want to breathe air among the tall green trees where it's so sweet and fresh. No, you're going to have to breathe that city air. And that gets back to what I was going to say before, is that they're not only going to keep us away from nature, but they're also going to make nature their dumping ground. Right? I mean, look at the Chesapeake Bay. You know, all tragedies can be seen through through your own eyes. If you look at something close to you that is a disaster, and in my view, the Chesapeake Bay is example number one. For instance, you know, right out here, right off of Mystery Island here on the Potomac, when Captain John Smith, with his explorers, first came up the Potomac River, he said that there were so many fish in the river that they were catching them with a frying pan. All they had to do was stick their frying pan into the water and pull it out, and there would be fish. Now, was that just a sales gimmick to get people to support the colony? No, it was real. And the woods supported all kinds of animals, you know, plenty, far more than we would need if we decided to live off of the local flora and fauna. But no, we had to come in and clear everything and put our European animals in and destroy the environment for the natural way that the Indians had been maintaining it. The incredible ego of the Anglo-Saxon mind, from Captain John Smith to now, to George P. Schultz, the incredible ego that tells him, oops, something going on here. We'll let that go. Sorry. The incredible egocentric personalities that have gotten in charge of our country. Oh, sorry. There we go. I think probably they were concerned about my car's auto warranty, and I thank them for their concern, but not right now. Yeah, contaminate, then prohibit in order to control. Laura, you hit the nail on the head there. And green for thee, not for me. You guys see it. You see what I'm saying? The whole idea of humans becoming a commodity like sheep and cattle. It sounds like a little far-fetched, but don't stop thinking that way, because that's the way they're thinking. They don't think any of us have the brains that they have. They think we all are just dumb cattle and can be pushed around and, you know, done whatever they want to with us. And World War II should keep that in people's minds. How can anybody forget the Holocaust? And yet we forget the Holocaust. You know, because hey, we've because Russia, right? You know, Russia, China. Well, wait a minute. What about the Holocaust? Oh, wait, no. We're done with the Holocaust. We're now worried about the evil Ruskies. Well, wait a minute. We already took them down. Didn't Brzezinski and Kissinger and them already take care of that. That's done, right? They're just capitalists like the rest of us, right? No, they're evil. They're Ruskies. You can't trust them. Ruskies. You can't trust them. That's it. Was Soylent Green a glimpse of our future? I sure hope not. I sure hope not. That Charlton Heston had a way of selling stuff, doesn't he? He's the Marlboro man. Yeah, trust us. We don't put any carcinogens in our cigarettes. Trust us. You know. Oh, that little bit of phosphorus that helps it keep burning. That's not gonna hurt you. Why are you even worried about it? Just smoke some more cigarettes. That's what we do. We're doctors. And you can see those old ads from the 50s and 60s where they say, "Oh, the doctors smoke. Why shouldn't you?" Yeah, JFK. What happened with JFK? Can we? Is there any chance we can wake people up to JFK? Well, they've put so many layers, so many thousands of layers on it. It's very challenging, but I'm working on it. This book is my next. I'll be reading portions of this. This is the actual Torbit document with an introduction, but it's called NASA, Nazis, and JFK. And you can see the crosshairs on JFK. And there's Werner von Braun next to him. Was Werner von Braun part of the assassination of President Kennedy? Sounds, why would he do that? He's a good guy. He talked to Walt Disney all the time. And Walt Disney, oh man, he was all about, making children happy, right? I don't know. I think Disney, if maybe Disney could fall, that would be a good sign. If the whole Mickey Mouse, creepiness, and I don't want to say too much more because I'll just get slapped down by the censors, but let's just say Disney should fall. Disney has been part of this creepy deep state psychological operation from the beginning. And who's the leader of the club that's made for you and me? MICKEYMOUSE. Yeah, who's the leader of the club that's made for you and me? It's a mouse, a mouse with two little ears that symbolize the antenna, the antenna of animals, that we listen, we receive information, and we act accordingly. We want you to have a pair of mouse ears too. Please get your mouse ears and remember, you are a member of the club. You're in. You're one of us. And Tinkerbell and Coca-Cola will control your mind. Have another drink. Watch some more Mickey Mouse Club. Yeah. Annette and Cuffy. Remember Cuffy? I thought he was cool. That was my favorite name, Cuffy. You guys know what the name Cuffy really means? Cuffy is Kofi, coffee, which is a African language word which means Friday, the day of the week, Friday. But it's also a slave name. It's one of the names that if you were an African and your name was Coffee and you came into America as a slave, as a servant, your overseer might very well have decided to call you Cuffy. And that's where the name Cuffy, I think, comes from. Technocracy, the operating system. While the UK states claims While the UK state claims that human rights are universal, they clearly aren't if they are qualified rights based upon whatever the government decides to be more important. Individuals pressing their rights in court has hampered the government's programs. Yeah, why in the world does Julian Assange have to take up all of our time in court? It's hampering our programs. This is considered to be a democratic deficit. Therefore, the new Bill of Rights will protect the government's power and authority over and above the freedoms of the people. The UK government will define national security. Protecting it as they see fit will override all individual rights. Freedom to roam, of speech and expression will not be tolerated by the UK state. Instead, a commitment to the public interest, safety, and protecting the population from some nebulous notion of harm will replace freedom and democracy. On both sides of the Atlantic and in the Five Eyes global south, a new system is emerging which facilitates what Mussolini described as the fascist state. Quote, and this quote I'm going to leave the show with. So this is the quote for the day. The fascist conception of life stresses the importance of the state and accepts the individual only insofar as his interests coincide with those of the state. Liberalism denied the state in the name of the individual. Fascism reasserts the rights of the state as expressing the real essence of the individual. The fascist conception of the state is all-embracing. Outside of it, no human or spiritual values can exist, much less have value. Thus understood, fascism is totalitarian, and the fascist state, a synthesis and a unit inclusive of all values, interprets, develops, and potentates the whole life of a people, unquote. That's Mussolini describing the fascist state back in the 1930s. That was their dream. And that is the synarchist dream. And that is where we're headed with technocracy, or as the new word is, technate. The world will be a technate, according to Klaus Schwab. We don't think so. We don't think so here at McDuff, and we don't think so here at Neighborhood News Studio. And so we're going to keep on working, keep on walking, keep on talking, walking toward that freedom land, because that's where we're headed. We're headed for freedom. We're not headed for slavery. Thanks, everyone.
Well, thank you, John OLoughlin, once again for kicking off today's show. You rounded out your second week here at Neighborhood News Studio, so thank you for continuing your hard work. And once again, you can find John at screamingospreys.com. They got the live osprey nest. You know, that's what we consider ourselves here